I guess Konrad stole a little bit of my initial speech because he also wished to ask you about your evening yesterday. I hope it was great. As Konrad said, we will be talking about discounts, and specifically we will be avoiding the topics that Konrad was talking yesterday. He was talking about the APIs. I will be talking more about how to integrate the APIs into the admin UI. So first of all, my name is Paweł Niedzielski. I'm a developer at Ibexa for 4 years. I'm technically a maintainer of Ibexa migrations. That was my first project, which I'm kind of proud of. And we probably met last year when I was presenting PHP stan, static analysis, and integration tests for your projects. In my pastime, I'm usually playing board games with my colleagues from work and PC games in general. If you want to reach to me, you can write an email directly or contact me through GitHub. So, the agenda for today is I will be quickly going over through what Konrad has already said about the discounts. Then I will show you how discounts look in the admin UI currently. They are still work in progress. Then I will tell you exactly how it works in the backend, in the admin UI, and then I will show you a few examples of how you can change the admin UI forms specifically to match the conditions and rules that you will be introducing through your own code in your projects or your libraries. So moving on, the small disclaimer, this is still work in progress, so anything I'm showing might change. The general gist will probably not change too much because it's already proving to be working. And to be honest, not to lie to you, when I was working on this presentation, I have already discovered a few things that kind of irked me, and I would love to have them changed. So yeah, but I will note this when this happens. So what are the discounts? The discounts are the opt-in feature for 4.6. LTS update, so you will be able to install it once it's released. The purpose of it is to allow you to change the price of your products in the storefront in a more friendly way than it was previously available. And the baseline that we'll be providing is a setup that you can extend in. You can create your own discounts, because when we were discussing this in the team with people that we were working with, it proved that everybody has a different concept of what discount is and how it should work. So, of course, as all APIs that we introduce, the basic part of it is the discount service interface. It's a service like any other in our projects. It has the capacity to query the discounts, and also it has the capacity to change the discounts, and it's the baseline. It's the most basic part of the system. And as Konrad said yesterday, we chose to use expression language as a way of introducing the discount conditions and rules, since this is the most flexible part, and since it allows you to have as much control and ease of use when introducing your own conditions and your own rules, because you can, there will be a specific set of variables that are available in the expressions, and second, you can introduce your own functions to call them, which will allow you to make some quite nice stuff, like call remote APIs, things like that. So how it looks in the admin UI currently. We have a simple list, and if you click the Create button, it will open a submenu, which will allow you to pick what type of discounts you want to create. Currently we have, and we don't really expect to have more than 2, the catalog and cart. Why we don't really expect? Because those are very specific, and the catalog one is kind of the most basic one. It has the access to the lowest amount of parameters. Why? Because it doesn't have access to the context, for example, to the cart, to the, basically whenever you have a list of products that you want to keep together, the catalog one doesn't have access to it, because of course the purpose of it is to be able to change the price index. So if you have a catalog of products, this will influence the index. This will change the price that is displayed on the list of products, but not in carts, not in order sets, nothing like that. The cart, on the other hand, has access to everything. It has access to the context of the user. It will so for example, you can create discounts which check the state of the cart. That it can check how many products are in, what is the price of those products, and so on and so forth. And once you click create, you will be introduced with a wizard, which will be actually mostly focusing on. It currently contains 5 steps, but you can introduce your own when you want to, when it's needed for your project. So how exactly does it work under the hood? We're introducing a concept of discount form mapper interface. This is a service that is responsible for translating the form data into structures, right? Because as a developer, we're introducing discount conditions and discount rules and other objects that are related to the discounts. However, our users are, of course, not technical ones, and we need to provide them with a nice interface so they can input those in the way they want, right? In however we design the UI. So the discount form mapper interface, we're also providing an abstract, and the purpose of the abstract is to enable you to introduce your own rule types. I will go back to a few slides before. When you looked here, this is a representation of the form mapper, because every form mapper that you introduce, you will be declaring the types, and those types will appear here. More on that later. Yeah, of course I kind of a little bit skipped. The basic implementation of the interface is the registry, and it will collect all the implementations that have this tag in them, the form mapper, and the abstract requires you to declare with which discount types and which discount rule types this particular mapper works. This is necessary exactly for the purpose of creating that window where you have what types of discounts you want to create and what rule types you have. There are 4 other methods in the interface. 2 are related to creating the data that's underlying in the form. We have decided that the best way to approach this is to give you control over what data sits in the form. This is kind of data-driven approach, where the mapper gives the form the data, and the form reacts to the data that it has to create more fields as necessary. This nicely separates the forms against the data. And the other 2 methods that we have is when the form is submitted, the same form mapper is responsible for converting the form data into structures that discount service understands, right? So we have a form data that we create, that we control, and after that data is submitted by the user, we decide how exactly we want to convert those data structures into basic discount information like name, priority, and so on, but also discount conditions when a particular discount needs to be applied, and the discount rule. For extensibility, all 4 of those methods at the end of their work dispatch 4 events. Those events are necessary to provide a nice extensibility point whenever you don't want to exactly replace the whole form mapper, and what you only want is to change the data slightly. This also gives us a little bit of composability, because we can have many different event listeners, and each of those listeners may change the data a little bit in some form. And I can already tell that there will be small changes to how this works. Again, because when working on this presentation, I've discovered that it's not exactly how I would like to. I'm pretty sure we will have more events for each step specifically. Because while changing the whole form is fine, sometimes we only want to change a part of it. So this is the basic flow. We have a discount form mapper, which creates the discount data. This is passed to the discount type form. This has listeners that check what the data shape is. And once the form is submitted, it goes back to the discount form mapper, which puts it over to the discount service. This basically happens in the controller, so it's not like automatic. But I guess you'd expect it. Like, you can use form mapper on its own, but the controller connects those two services. And what's the object that the form mapper actually outputs? This is the discount data interface, and the most important functions, in my opinion, is the get steps. This is the function that tells the wizard how many steps there are and what they are. The abstract that you will have by default asks it has 5 additional submappers, each responsible for each dedicated step. I will show you in a few slides an example of how I'm replacing one of those mappers to introduce an additional field. Again, I'm pretty sure we will develop more ways to change the data shape a little bit, so it doesn't require replacing the whole mapper just to add a field. And as I said, the form currently reacts to how the data looks like. We're of course using the Symfony form events, the preset data, because we kind of expect that whenever you're interacting with discount type, that you will pass the data to it. That's the basic premise, and that allows us to react to the preset data event, and this allows us in turn to change the shape of the form. We're introducing a few dedicated listeners, like a few dedicated tags and interfaces to simplify the process. But technically, you could also register events on your own, and it should also work. We're basically giving you a little wrapper, so it's a bit simpler. And I'm pretty sure, again, given our research, that there will be more listeners, more tags, probably for each step separately. So how do we add a field to a specific step? Imagine that we have a condition where we want to have a third-party service, and that service has and that service, for example, wants to know every time we're creating a discount. So we want to have an additional field in the general step, which will contain the remote code, which will imagine that it will be sent at the end of this process to the remote service, and it will register that, hey, I've got a discount. I just created the discount. So how do we approach this? We will need four things at the moment. We will need to have a dedicated data object that will contain the new field, because the current general properties doesn't have those. We will need to have a mapper which will tell exactly how to create this object. And just as I've shown you before, the same mapper will also be responsible for converting that data back into structures that discount service will understand. We also need a form listener that will be responsible for adding the fields to the form type. And technically, this is an optional thing. You could create a form type dedicated to this particular data shape. And I think it's a good thing to do. It's really simple, and why not? So I've created general properties, which implements the general properties interface. This is the first step of the form. This is the important part. The remote code, I added that it is mandatory. And those groups are quite important. This is the general properties group. So this means whenever we're exiting the general properties step, we're advancing the form, this needs to be checked. And I'm also adding default because at the end of the form, when I'm passing everything, I also want to have a check that this remote code was actually filled. So it's not empty at the end. And to simplify the process, I've also injected the old general properties. And it's not shown here, but every method of this general properties interface should be down below. Like we're delegating every single order field, we're delegating back to the original general properties data structure. We will probably add a decorator for this, so you don't need to copy all the methods on your own. Second thing is the data mapper. Again, we're decorating the original general properties creator, the original general properties mapper. And what it does is basically, whenever we want to create form data, we ask the original data mapper and then pass just as you've seen, since we're decorating the original object, we're passing the original object to our own general properties. And to make it complete, we also create the mapping methods which are responsible for converting the data into the structures. And as you can see, in this location, we can access remote data, remote code, and we can do something with this. Like we can convert it into a condition, we can convert it into a rule. We can do different things. Note that at this point, the discount is not yet created. It doesn't exist yet. It's only for converting into structures. So if you want to send this information into a remote third-party service, you probably want to react to another event later on when the discount is actually created from the discount service to keep everything complete. And the listener, this is the implementation of the form listener, which creates the form. As you can see, it's very simple. All it does is it has the method isDataSupported, which basically means that we're checking every step that the form has, and we're checking against this method. And if the data is supported, then we execute addFields method. The name may change because technically you can also use it to remove fields, so we'll see. And due to the fact that this is the abstract form listener, it has an interface. It's not visible here, but the abstract has those. It will be auto-tagged. And as I said, we also have the form type. It's a really simple one. We're just adding a remote field, to the form. And last but not least is that since we want to, this is the issue that I had when I was creating this presentation. since we want to introduce this field to each and every single discount, we need to decorate the original implementation. It's okay-ish, but kind of funky from my perspective. We'll probably be looking for something else, so the adding of a single field won't require that much effort. So how this looks in the actual, give me a second, how this looks in the actual project, in the actual application. We have a create button. We access the catalog. And at the end of the wizard, we have our remote code. That's the result of this. So again, I'm pretty sure we will change this a bit because we want to have more composability than just that. So second thing that we can also do, we may want to introduce a dedicated step. Like we want to have, we have something that's so, that's very distinct, and we want to have this as a separate step. So I came up with an idea that, again, this step can be used to communicate with third-party servers. And in this case, I thought about maybe we want to have a step which will have some kind of a coupon data, referral data, whatever, something like that. So how do we approach this? Again, we need to have a data object because everything in the data mapper is in the forms is data driven. We want to have a form listener that will add the relevant form type. We want to have a mapper listener. This is the exact same thing. It creates the data and it converts it into structs whenever it needs to interact with discount servers. And in this case, I added, like kind of optional again, a condition and a condition factor. This is something that Konrad was showing yesterday, that you may want to introduce conditions, you want to introduce condition factories to create those. So this is our basic step data. Again, this is the important part. We have groups, in this case default and coupon. Those are, again, important because when we're exiting this step, we want to check that everything in the data is correct. We have a form listener. Again, this is a very simple one. It's just like the previous one. It checks that the step data is a particular type. And if it is, it adds fields. In this case, I decided, just for example, to not introduce a dedicated form type. In this case, I'm building the form directly in the mapper, in the listener. And the actual form mapper, it reacts to 4 events. It's the create form data, the map discount form data, and those 2 events that are required for the conversion of data into structures, into structs. Since this is coupon code, then we expect that this should not show whenever we're working with a catalog, right? We only expect this to work when we're dealing with cart. In catalog, the coupon doesn't exist. So that's why whenever we encounter, whenever we discover that the type of the data is a catalog, we decide to ignore it and not do anything. In other cases, we're creating a new coupon step data. And since event allows us to do so, we're replacing the data in the event. So the original mapper created some data, and then we called method with step, which created a clone of those steps, and we can set it so, and we can ask the system to replace the original steps in that event. So instead of 5 steps, we will have 6. And this is a counterpart for the case where we're dealing with a discount that already exists. It's mostly the same. It checks the type of the discount, not the data, because when we're dealing with update form, we're updating a discount that already has the type, and we cannot manipulate this one. If we want to change the type of the discount, we need to create a new one. And yeah, we're calling the get condition by class name because we expect that the discount will contain this coupon condition. And if it doesn't, since we simply want to add an empty field in this case, we do so. If not, we fill it with data. Again, this part, this identifier, this one, is also the identifier of the validation group. So that's important to match. And the last part of this mapper is the actual adding of the condition. Again, I've created the condition class, which I will show in a second. And since both methods are exactly the same, I'm just creating this. I'm just extracting the data. I'm just extracting the same code into a private method. This is a simple condition that contains this coupon. As you can see, I'm using a imaginary, in this case, get card coupon code function, which you can inject by using the expression provider that Konrad already mentioned. And the condition factory, because this is necessary when we're loading conditions back from the system, we also need to create a factory that will tell you exactly, that will tell the system exactly how to create that condition back from the persistence. So how does it look in the actual application again? We have, in this case, I will select a card. And you can see that we have an additional step right here. And once we enter it, we have a coupon code that we can add. I think I've set it as not blank, so whenever I click next, it will ask me to fill it. And thus you can see that the validation actually works. OK, so we had an additional field, we had an additional step. How about an additional rule type? Because why not? To add an additional rule type, actually only 3 things are necessary, but it's the base one, the basics, because you may want to create more depending on how much of the wizard you want to change. Basically, if you want to replace, for example, imagine that you have a type which needs to have, I don't know, maybe the condition step needs to look a little bit different. So what you would do, you would create this service, which I'll show you in a second, and you will replace only the conditions mapper, right? So you would have a different data shape for the conditions itself, and the form will react to the data that's different. So this is, since I'm not really introducing anything concrete, I created a full discount value, because whenever you introduce a new rule type, you will need to have something that will contain the data for that rule, right? In this case, it's empty, but that should never be the case, because you will almost always need something additional to add to the rule. For example, if you have a fixed amount, you need to say how much of that fixed amount. If you have a percentage, you want to have how many percents you want to deduct. If you have, for example, by x get y, you would have to have more data, more fields to fill. And the form mapper, which again, since I'm dealing with a simple, just an object, it's a really simple thing. We're creating data, and since we don't have any data to map, we're just not mapping anything. And last thing is the form mapper for the actual form mapper. As you can see, it has the rule of foo. So this is the rule that we're creating. And this is the part that I was talking about. This is this discount value mapper that we just created. This is the only service that's actually necessary to fill. Because again, when we're creating discount rules, we expect them to be distinct. We expect them to have, this is our business logic. Those are the rules of the discounts. So how does it look in the actual application again? I again click the create button, and in this case, we have an additional type at the top of the rule types. I need to select this as a catalog, although it doesn't really matter in this case. And you can see that this is the same form that was created before, since it's using all the 4 other mappers are the default ones. And it also contains that remote code that I created, since I've replaced the default one. And at the very end, we have a discount value, which should be empty, because we declared this as an object that doesn't have any properties. We didn't map it to any specific form type. Yes. So again, discounts are a work in progress. We're still changing a lot of things. Even when dealing with this presentation, I have discovered that there are things that need probably to be simpler to do. So this will probably change a little bit. The basic should remain the same, right? It will be a data-driven approach. The form type will react to the data. This is how you will implement your own discount rules and conditions in the admin UI. So this is the end of this presentation, but not the end of our work. And I guess my question is, do you have any questions? I think that's it. Thank you very much for your time.